Welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next Super Stock live stream, where we bring you those stocks and shout out 10x to 100x upside potential companies going after massive multi-billion-dollar market opportunities that are at a key inflection point and with multiple catalysts in place. And we are back with, I think, one of the hottest stocks on the planet today, Advent Technologies, ADN, the stock that has tripled already since we launched it a few weeks ago at $1.90. We hit recently $6 and change, massive volume. And Gary, let me just introduce you. Oh yeah, we got Gary. Do we have your title on the screen? Okay, Gary, there we go. Gary Herman, the CEO of the company. Gary, I was mentioning the inflection point, which is critical, right? The whole, our whole philosophy, our whole thesis is we want to get into these stocks which could become potentially 10 baggers, but we want to get in at the inflection point. And Gary, you've been in money management, in your career prior to this, right? And you know how important it is. You want to get in at the inflection point. A lot of times stocks are, they're going sideways for a long time. The big money is made like in a window. I call it the 10 bagger window, like a 6 to 12 month period where the thing can go parabolic.
Right.
Am I right or no?
Absolutely. It's that you're looking for the catalyst or a group of catalysts to create that hockey stick inflection point.
Right. So the inflection. Okay. So what do we look for with the inflection point is we want to see signs of the inflection point in terms of news flow. The news flow, and this is why we tell our audience, this is, we got in the 10 bagger blueprint. We want to have news flow. The news flow is the pulse of the company, and that tells us, do we have an inflection point and the quality of the news flow. So now what I find interesting is you've been coming out with very strong news that tells us, yes, the company is making progress, making momentum across all its growth initiatives. But what got my attention this week was that there we go. We got the book, the 10 bagger blueprint. We got to give it a plug. 10 bagger blueprint book explains the whole formula for finding these stocks to become 10 baggers. Link in the bio above. Gary, we got to give it a plug. We got to give it a quick ad.
All right,
but here's the thing. What got my attention was your news flow this week, where you're bringing on a new partner, which is to drive the business development and commercialization. This is Daniel Fata. So
correct.
I don't know if people paid attention to it, but I thought this was a big deal. I actually wanted to do a live stream. I think it's because that's the type of stuff that I think is that that's the proof that the company is at the inflection point. A lot of times companies say, everybody says, we're at the inflection. The reality is the news flow. The reality is, what are they doing? It's not talk, it's action. We're seeing action. We're seeing you're making the steps. So enough about me. Now I want to hear from you. Tell us what this means. This business development news.
Jack, you're correct. It's the news flow, and we have a team at Advent which has been working very hard over these many months to get us to this point. 2 weeks ago, we had the release about the exclusive license for aviation, marine, and portable power with Los Alamos. We've discussed our initiatives or renewed initiatives in space, and from our first presentation, we talked about our Honey Badger, which is portable power for soldiers. Bringing on Dan and his firm, Fodder Advisory, is going to take us to the next step, and the really what I'll say is accelerate the commercialization of that product. We have proved proof of concept that the Honey Badger works, portable power for soldiers, and there's many applications: Army, Navy, Marines, Homeland Security, many government agencies at city, state, and local, state, federal levels. So Dan comes with 20 plus years of experience. He came out of Capitol Hill. He's worked with some of the big defense companies, as we mentioned in our most recent press release, Lockheed Martin, for one, which is the largest military defense company in the world. So we are very excited to have him on board. And again, this goes to what I was saying just a moment ago, the inflection point. All this work brings us to a point so we can get to that hockey stick inflection point.
Yeah. So back again, so the business development, again, that's what people want to see revenues, right? They want to see the revenues go like this, right? And this is the guy that basically can help make that happen. Now, so is he like a lobbyist? Because I know in order to get defense contracts, you need these guys who have, you know, they're tied in with the generals and this and that, and they
Right.
show this stuff and they what they're looking. Tell us like what this guy's track record is, and so people can understand how soon and how fast we can see
Right.
potentially revenues and we can see scale up. I think that's what we're looking for, right? We want to see scale up. We want to see that momentum, that velocity. We want to see velocity of revenues, right?
Right. Well, Dan spent many years in Washington, and he has spent a number of years working with defense contractors. So we believe what he's going to do is really increase the profile for the company. And you're right, with the generals, with the people who are in charge of the purchasing, even the intermediary companies. And he's very excited about it. He selects a handful of clients, and we met the criteria for him. So that was very important to us. And we believe the honey badger, for example, is at a point where it should really make that inflection point for commercialization.
Okay. By the way, today, just for anybody just tuning in, today's live stream, we're going to actually be talking about space. We're going to be talking about, you know, what ADN is doing in terms of the space economy. We're going to be bringing on Emory in just a little bit, but I really want to address this first because I think it's very important. Because look, I think people need to understand it. I mean, again, I'm looking at this from an investor's perspective. Okay, all the stuff you're talking about, you know, the technology, you know, for eVTOLs, for the air taxis, all that, it's great. But I want to see like what could drive revenues near term. Where can we get that velocity near term, you know, to move the needle? And I think this is like a step in that direction. And all these things are steps in that direction that you're making.
Well, that's correct. I mean, the honey badger product is certainly a step in that direction. And what we're going to touch on with Emory in just a moment is space. And as you touched on for a moment, aviation, the electric aircraft, the short vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. These all require power. As we go back to, if we look back at our first presentation we had, it's all about portable power at the end of the day. And that's what we do so well with our fuel cell technology.
Okay. By the way, you're on the road again. Are you at Los Alamos? Because I know the technology is from Los Alamos, right? The home of the atomic bomb, the Los Alamos, Oppenheimer.
Not at Los Alamos this week. That was a few weeks ago. So, I have been in. It's been a very busy week for meetings, and unfortunately, yes, I got stuck in my second favorite office, my car. But it was so important today to be available.
Gary, one thing I want to mention, I think a lot of people in our audience appreciate is the news flow, which again, you know, that's what moves the stocks. That's what creates, you know, gets the sustainability. And you know, I'm actually surprised that you've had two announcements in a basically this is like a dead week, the last week of August. Nobody's expecting anything. So the fact that you're getting the news flow, yet you've delivered, you're actually, you know, there's a reason the stock is continuing to move up because you got the news flow. And it's all substantive news. So these are all substantive milestones, which are important. So the fact that this is happening, I think a lot of people appreciate it because, hey, this means, you know, a lot of companies say they're going to do stuff, and not everybody does stuff. You're actually doing stuff. So you know,
we're all working very hard at Advent. If I had my first choice, I would probably be on the beach right now for the final week of the summer. But there's just too much going on at the company.
So yeah, we got Tomei.
It's all very exciting to me, and that's why I'm working so hard, and the team's working so hard this week.
So yeah, so we got the news flow. The news flow, definitely people love the news flow. Okay, so with that said, let's talk about space. So let's bring on Emory DeCastro, the Chief Technology Officer.
Bring on Emory.
Emory, what I'm going to do, so I'm going to do the intro, but I'm going to disappear. You do the presentation. And I'll come back for audience questions. I think we're going to have a lot of audience questions. So, guys, if you're watching, get your questions ready in about 5-10 minutes. We'll go through. But I think this is a new aspect. This is a facet of ADN that I don't think anybody's aware of, which is the applications of the hydrogen fuel cell to what's being called now the space economy. You know, it's amazing. Like, all this stuff, you know, when I was a kid, this was like science fiction. Now we actually have, like, people are commercial. Like, you have, SpaceX. You have all these companies, and there's so many companies that are doing projects with satellite, all this stuff, and they all need power in space. And I think this is one of that's the sticky point. How do you get the power in space to drive? We're going to talk about AI, robots, all these different things. We're talking about, if Elon Musk wants to go to Mars, how is he going to get power there? And you got asteroids. By the way, the crazy thing is you have guys talking about mining asteroids. Are you familiar with this? Mining asteroids?
Sure.
Like, yeah. So the asteroid mining, the asteroid mining, it's like there's guys who are like serious mining guys are saying, hey, they want to do it because apparently some of these asteroids have like literally $1 trillion worth of mineral. This is it's like literally it's a crazy thing. So all right, I'll get your deck on the screen, and Emery, take it away.
Very good. Thanks, Jack. Yeah, we're talking about space, and it may seem like science fiction, but in fact, the reality is we are starting to industrialize space. We now have commercial rocket ships up there, and two other aspects about space that are really important because they need advanced power systems. One, with regards to satellites, there's a lot of satellite communications, and with AI support in space or AI support around the world, when you're relying on satellites, it's a really high data rate, which gobbles up a lot of power. But the same thing with robotics with regards to mining. Again, you need really high power to run these things in space, and your options are really limited. Let's see. Can we go to the next one? Yeah, it looks like we just jammed a little bit. There we go. And here's the issue. When you need power in space, it's solar. And actually, it's solar in a combination of battery. But the issue is that you do not have the sun all the time, right? You're always going around, either circling the Earth if you're a satellite, or on a planet if you're a moon. There is a dark side. So there's a period of time when the solar will no longer work in space. And that is where we come in. And just a reminder, right? Advanced technology, it's what makes it different is several things, but it can operate hot. We have what's called a membrane electrode assembly. That's that orange-black component in the middle of the stack. We have a special plastic that can operate at over the boiling point of water. And when you can do that, you have what's called great thermal control. You can eliminate the heat better. Our competition, low temperature PEM, it cannot get that hot. It's very hard to keep it cool. So when you have applications where thermal control is critical, like aviation, drones, eVTOLs, big trucks, but most importantly, satellites, rovers, robotics, this ability to lose heat is really important. In fact, because space is a vacuum, it's actually very hard to lose heat up there. So here's how one of our systems works. We developed this for the European Space Agency, and it starts with some water and an electrolyzer. So when the sun is shining, we generate hydrogen and oxygen. We store those in a tank. And then when it gets dark, you feed the hydrogen and oxygen back to a high temperature PEM stack. We create power that charges the battery systems, keeps systems running. And when you create power with a fuel cell by recombining hydrogen and oxygen, you create water again. So the water is back on board. In fact, the magic of this whole thing is in the lower left-hand corner. Because in space, weight means everything because you're paying dollars per kilogram. And so if you look at a standard battery, it is 0.6 kilowatt hours of energy per kilogram of battery. Whereas for hydrogen, it's actually 33.3, more than 5 times more energy for hydrogen. So that's why this whole system works. There's greater hydrogen and energy than there is in a lithium-ion battery. And so for us, we call this a regenerative system because you can constantly create the fuel. You use it, creates water, then you regenerate it, goes into our fuel cell. And so for things like these rovers, like you see here on the Mars, or as you said, Jack, if there are robotics on an asteroid mining, they create a lot of power, and they will not always be in daylight to get that power. And so our system bridges that gap. The other thing about AI, again, is that the satellites that are circling the Earth now, they are typically run with batteries. But batteries, when you cycle them off and on, they start to lose some of their capacity to hold energy. And so it starts to have this gap between dark and light. And again, our system can really work well in satellites. So, in summary, this high temperature PEM really is a superior technology. We have a great team behind it. And although it seems like space is far off, in fact, it's amongst us today, and our systems can help power systems in space. Okay, thanks, Jack. We can probably take some questions.
Okay. Okay. Do we, any audience questions? Okay. No questions yet. Okay. We just have comments. People like the news flow. Okay, so we have interest. Okay. So question. Okay, so I think what's interesting is that you have what validates everything. You have a partnership with the European Space Agency for this technology, right? That's the big deal. The European Space Agency is using.
Yeah, we had a program with them, and actually we worked with 2 other organizations as well, to make this all work. But they're very, very interesting because they realize there's the gap, and even our own NASA is starting to understand the gap as well for powering systems, and other organizations that are working on their own either robotics or space programs.
Okay, so this is really interesting. Yeah, this is just one other facet. Again, so we have a couple. There's a couple of different initiatives. I guess product or different revenue growth initiatives. Gary, I want to ask you. So near term, we have basically what we have. You got which one is going to draw? Which one is going to move the needle first? Is it going to be the honey badger, which is the military application? Like, what's going to move the needle? And what's going to be kind of the sequence of revenue growth for ADN?
I wished I had a crystal ball, Jack, and that's one of the reasons why we have multiple initiatives and multiple irons in the fire.
Okay, or we call it multiple shots on goal. So there's multiple catalysts. Again, back to catalysts.
Yes.
Yes. I think if you get any one of these growth initiatives, any one of these things go off, these are all potential catalysts. You have, again, this is, I think, what's interesting is any of these could be really a game changer for the company because the market cap is so small. So I mean, the market cap is like, what are we at, 12 million, whatever the number is today. It's so small compared to what one of these contracts could be. I mean, like a honey badger could be. How much is a honey badger? How much? What's the price? What's the pricing on those for those systems, approximately?
Yeah, they range. Let's just call it. It's a defense price, right? So they're relatively high. You wouldn't buy one for one of your computers, but getting back to what you said, I think the important point is that we have this core energy producing stack. And basically, the other applications, whether it be a honey badger, satellites, planes, they all use that same core technology. And so in a way, it's how you package that core technology to make it work in these other applications. So it's not like we have to develop totally new systems for all these applications Gary has talked about. The core is the same. And then you're applying that core to these other applications.
But I'm thinking, Gary, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm thinking these contracts, right? These are all big type. If you get like some traction, any of these things could be worth 10 million plus in revenues. No, I mean,
they can be worth significant amounts of money. If for example, the honey badger is ordered in bulk, we're talking about hundreds of units in an order. That's very significant. And then going back to what Emery just said, the core technology can be applied to different applications, and whether it's portable power for a soldier, portable power for a squad, portable power to have on the back of a Humvee. It's really taking the core and expanding it and expanding the power output of it.
Yeah.
Again, we go back to this, Jack, we go back to this theme, portable power. Where we need off-the-grid portable power, whether it's land, sea, or space, it's the same core technology. And that's what's so exciting about all this.
Yeah, no, this is interesting. Okay, question from Tome is asking. Okay, so the hydrogen fuel cell, can this be part of the new Mars rover? Would they have a use for hydrogen fuel cells?
Yeah, it definitely can. And that's because if you really wanted to power that rover, you would need a lot of batteries and a lot of sunlight. But by having one of our systems on there, a regenerative system, then you can reduce the amount of batteries you have there and actually have a little bit more power for that rover to not only cruise around, but maybe to do some digging, right? To take samples, which is a nice, lead into, say, robotics, right? If there's a lot of discussion of whether, we have manned or robotics. With robotics, you need power to power those things. And so this would actually be a great way to do that.
And Emery,
Okay.
in continuing that with the robotics, if going to this example of the Mars rover, power, robotics, and then you also have to power the AI for the robotics in that rover itself.
Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
also there's a tremendous need for, again, portable power.
Yeah, no, the AI takes massive amounts of power. Oh, so Tome is asking, is this part of the European Space Agency partnership?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. ESA is European Space Agency. Yeah.
Okay. And so he's asking, what's going on with NASA? Have you presented this to NASA, or are you doing anything with NASA?
Yeah, with NASA, let's just say discussions are ongoing is probably the best way to say. Yeah.
Okay. What about okay? So because I remember last time we were on, I think somebody asked it, like, because there's a bunch of companies in the in the space business right now. There's a whole bunch of them. So
Right.
you're talking to a number of these, from what we understand, or there's something going on with some of them.
We have a sales person in our organization who has reached out and made contact with many of the space companies today.
Okay. So those things could potentially translate into future news. So we could see some of these things come out as deal flow contracts, et cetera, in the next couple of in the months ahead, basically.
Possibilities of joint ventures, some type of relationship.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so this is so this is good. Okay, so we last week we talked about the eVTOLs, the drones, different applications for the fuel cells. Now we got space. What's next? What is what other applications can we talk about? And I think Gary, I think one of the real questions that people are going to be asking is, okay, what can we see in the coming weeks? You're starting to make some traction. You had some good news flow. What can we see in terms of potential revenue? Stuff that translates into revenue in the short term. When can we see something like that?
I think most importantly is people should just continue to watch the news flow. We're all very
Okay.
busy. As I said earlier, we're working during a holiday week. So just keep your eyes on the news flow.
Okay, so this sounds like a surprise. Sounds like you don't want to. Sounds like there could be an upside surprise soon. Okay, that you don't want to share. All right, good. So with that said, all right, guys, I want to thank you again for doing this quick update. We just wanted to catch up on those two items, the space news, and that's it. So we'll probably catch up with you again next week, or I think it'll probably be the week after Labor Day, unless you have some big news next week. We'll catch up at that point. So again, thank you again for joining us. Thank you everybody in the audience, Tome, everybody, and we'll see you all on the next one.
And Jack, thank you so much for having us.